This is Spiritual Mommas podcast. We're a couple of mamas out here just trying to raise kids, make it through a workday, and navigate mental health, all while going through a spiritual awakening. And we thought we'd take you with us. So grab your favorite cozy drink and let's chat. Hello?
Hi.
This is Aericka.
And I'm Kim.
And this is Spiritual Mommas podcast.
Yes, thanks for joining us.
I guess I had a question as to whether this was the podcast or not. Hello?
Where are we? What's going on?
Are we on? Are we off? Like, what's happening?
Yeah. I think it's a little different just because we normally have like a very prepared topic that we're going to get into, and today is going to be a little bit more free-flowing, so.
Yeah. So we're, oh my gosh, there's like a ladybug literally right next to me in my room. That's weird. Hello. Is that supposed to be
winter?
Yeah, isn't that supposed to be like good luck?
That's what I hear. I don't know.
I don't know what to do with it. It's just like walking across my desk. Anyway.
Okay.
We'll keep an eye on that. They're just coming to record with us, I guess. So.
Bring the good luck, the good energy.
Yeah. So, all right. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling good. And nothing super major is happening. So we're continuing that steady flow, which I very much enjoy.
That's good.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Yesterday over the weekend we had gone to my grandma's funeral, so kind of reflecting on that and dealing with all of that. But it was good because I got to see a lot of cousins I don't normally see.
Yeah.
So that was nice. I haven't seen some of them for 20 years or something. So it was nice to see them, and it was kind of good to have that family energy, and we all kind of came together, and it was a really good celebration of my grandma. So it was good.
It's nice to have that type of experience. We talk about connection often, and when you lose someone, it can be a really challenging time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of big emotions come up, and being able to connect with other people on that and share that with other people can make a huge difference in how you process.
Yeah, it was a, like I said, very good. Family came together. It was a lot of love. It was a lot of remembrance and celebration. So it was, of course it was sad, but good at the same time. So
yeah,
so that's good.
There's that bittersweet element to it. Mm-hmm. And I think when you have different traditions or different experiences with that, I think about some traditions, some cultures will do full-on life celebrations. Others do mourning periods and grieving, and so it can look very different because of that too. But in either case, if you're having connection with community and sharing that experience, it makes it a little easier.
Definitely. So
yeah,
today we were recording an episode. I'm not sure if it's going to come out before this one or after this one, but we started to talk about we were talking about spirit guide. Was it spirit guides or synchronicities?
Mm-hmm.
It was synchronicities.
Synchronicities, yeah.
And getting messages from our spirit guides. Mm-hmm. And you had said that, do you remember the quote? It was
I can pull up my notes real quick, but the article that I was looking at had referenced how synchronicities are from the light,
mm-hmm.
and that's it. That was pretty much the gist of it.
That messages only come from the light.
Yeah.
And you had said you didn't agree with that.
Yeah. And I don't know that I didn't fully agree with the language around
mm-hmm.
it
mm-hmm.
because of people's differences in outlook, in culture, in practices, in beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really sure how I felt. It just wasn't sitting right with me.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think that is? What was your thought? When you read that, what was your first thought?
So one of the things that we kind of like briefly touched on in that episode is like if you're practicing different types of practices, if you are working with different types of deities that might be seen as not from the light. And the things that come to mind are like people that work with um, Lilith or Hecate or, you know, whoever. Even Santa Muerte, like from an external perspective, those are viewed as darker deities. And I don't know that much about any of them, so I don't want to like overstep. But from just a surface level perspective, those are seen as darker deities. But those people who are working with them may still be getting synchronicities, and
Right.
the underlying purpose for some of those connections, some of those workings that people do, is still personal growth. It's what's in my best interest, my highest good, but it might be looked at through a different lens. Like it might be more of a, I have to go through trial and tribulation, or I have to learn how to stand up for myself. So that might mean that I'm going to be in a lot more challenging circumstances until I can learn that lesson. It's just a totally different viewpoint.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Like if you're talking about some of these kind of like darker practices, do they have spirit guides? Like I guess that, yeah, I mean, but they wouldn't necessarily have like angel
Mm-hmm.
spirit guides, because as we talked about is that angels are from source. They're from like
Mm-hmm.
pure love, pure energy, pure
Yeah.
um highest good type situation. So they wouldn't necessarily get any angels, but maybe they would have darker angels,
Yeah.
depending on what your belief system is.
I've heard, maybe this is something that I need to. I haven't really had like an interest in doing more of my own personal research into that area because it's not something that I want to, work on. But I've heard people speak of like them doing work with these certain deities, but then also like calling on Archangel Michael because of that protective factor
Mm-hmm.
and having both of those in place. But the person who's doing the working makes it work together, but they're very separate in their day
Mm-hmm.
to day, if that makes sense. Um, but yeah, in general, it's not like you're hearing a lot about synchronicities in the sense of like angel numbers that might be popping up
Mm-hmm.
or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. So it could look totally different.
I wonder, because again, I don't know anything about these practices,
Mm-hmm.
but just kind of let's say basing it off of what I do, and that would be that I would be calling upon my spirit guides to give me healing or guidance or whatever, um for my highest good. So that's kind of the idea, is that what I'm coming from is that
Mm-hmm.
it's that the spirit guides and the angels and your power animals and your power spirit or your animal spirits are there to guide you
Yeah.
to your best self, I guess,
Yeah.
your highest self. They're high vibrations. Would these, even if you're practicing these type of things, are these spirit guides still trying to put you at the highest good, but it's how you're interpreting it?
Mm. Probably.
Because it is all an interpretation. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, spirit doesn't say, I mean, sometimes they say blah, 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 but like very specifically, but very rarely. I mean, they usually talk in a different type of language, give you different signs. So it's all in
Mm-hmm.
your interpretation of it.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. When I pull out of the spiritual perspective, what I think of is like um, driving. I don't know why that's coming to mind. But whenever I go somewhere, like the people in my house, specifically with my boyfriend, I will be driving and he'll be like, "Why do you take this route? Why are you going this way? This is so frustrating, so
Hmm.
annoying. Why didn't you turn here? Why did you go straight? Why didn't you stop at that light? Why didn't you do this?" And for me, we're ending up in the same place. It's
Hmm.
not really taking that much more or less time. It's like the same amount of time to get there. This is the route that I chose to take. So
Yeah.
there's, like nothing wrong with it. And then the few occasions that he'll drive, I'll be like, why did you go that way? Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Hmm.
So I think about it in that perspective. Like, you're ending up in the same place. It is for your own personal growth, it is for your own highest good. But the route that you take to get there can look very different. And
Hmm.
maybe that's designed that way because of what your needs are, right? Like,
Hmm.
if you're needing to do a lot more of, um, of what's the word that I'm looking for? Like self-advocacy, and you're needing to do a lot more of that, like gaining your power,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe the route you take is just completely different there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So bringing it like let's just kind of go back to our own beliefs, our own
Yeah.
practices. Do you, from your perspective,
Mm-hmm.
in your practice, your beliefs, do you believe that the signs that would be coming to you
Mm-hmm.
would be from the light only?
No.
Okay, let's get into it.
I think that they will lead me there. They will lead me to that highest good that I'm trying to get to. But it may be that I have to take that alternative route. So, like, if you have to learn this lesson and your spirit guides have been trying to tell you over and over and over, and you're not hearing it, you're not seeing it, you're not understanding it, then they may put an obstacle in your way, which may not, I mean, I guess in that sense, yeah, it's coming from your spirit guides, your spirit team, so it's
Mm-hmm.
still coming from the same place, but it
Mm-hmm.
may not be that, like, oh, this is all beautiful and love and light and great and amazing and positive. It may be like, hey, you need to trip and fall right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when we talked about that, I don't know if it's a spoiler alert at this point, but we had Gabrielle Celeste from Spiritual Mommas podcast on, and she said the same thing. She said she went through a situation where
Mm-hmm.
like she was like kind of pushing herself too much, and then she got sick, and it's like, you know, spirit will make you stop and think.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm hearing your interpretation of it coming from the light is that it will be good.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be something good in that, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, maybe you need to slow down. Maybe you need to learn this lesson, and it's going to suck and it's going to be hard, but it's still to get you to your highest self. So it's still from the light
Yeah.
source. Like it's still from spirit, still from source, versus kind of what I'm thinking is that, is there a darker force
Yeah.
that might be tricking me or trying
Mm-hmm.
to send me a different direction?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like my thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think the same people that say that everything is from the light, like you're all the signs that you're getting. So, I mean, we're talking about, there's kind of nuances to this, right? Like
Yeah.
we're talking about getting messages from spirit guides versus just getting messages and trying to
Mm-hmm.
determine who they're from. And I think being very specific as to who you're talking to
Yeah.
when you ask a question, or when you are meditating, and when you're like trying to call in things,
Mm-hmm.
is important, because then you're going to be able to trust a little bit better what signs you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe if you're not as, you know, specific about that,
Mm-hmm.
um, that there might be something that's coming to kind of trick you.
Yeah.
Do you think that?
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think, I do think that. I think that that's where, like, really being attuned to your intuition is going to be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's this conversation that goes around often about, is this anxiety or is this my intuition?
Mm-hmm.
And when do you know the difference, and what does that look like? And if you're getting messages that aren't aligned with your highest good, or, meant for you in that way to push you in self-growth, then what you may be receiving may feel off. It may feel misaligned. It may feel
Mm-hmm.
anxiety inducing. It may feel, like it's just not sitting right. And if you're attuned to that, then you're more easily able to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, with also asking and being specific with who you're speaking to and what you're asking, and, what your purpose is for asking those things. But being able to know yourself well enough to
Mm-hmm.
to be steady enough in your intuition to know that, okay, this is maybe not what I expected, but yeah, it aligns with who I am and where I'm trying to go, versus this isn't what I expected and it doesn't feel right and I don't really want to do it and it's making me anxious and what if
Mm-hmm.
this and what if that. It's a totally different experience, and one that you should be paying attention to
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
when you're trying to interpret messages.
Yeah, definitely. Do you believe that there are like kind of evil deities or darker deities or darker entities out there that can be attracted to you or want to do, or I don't know, for whatever reason being in your way, wanting you to not? succeed, I guess.
The jury's out on that, I think, for me, for a couple different reasons. Because on the one hand, yes, and how do I put this? Do I believe that they're out there? Yes. Do I believe that they can make things really difficult, like trickster spirits that you hear about, or, you know, even when you hear about people that like work with like chaos magic or something like that. Do I believe that it exists? Yes. Do I believe that it's for me? No.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think that it kind of depends on what you've been exposed to, meaning like if you live in a house that's kind of got a dark spirit that's there, if you have encountered something that was very traumatic and like an evil, maybe not evil, that's not the right word, but you know, a darker spirit that like that trauma like comes on you, like clings onto you, that energy, it's more just energy clings onto you, you know. Maybe there's that sort of stuff. So like maybe not everybody is targeted, but you can get yourself into situations just by being exposed to things.
Yeah.
But honestly, I do think that sometimes when you're of the light and you're doing light work, I do think that it will attract the opposite. And sometimes, depending on your power, depending on what your purpose is, depending on what your past lives were, whatever, I think that there are darker entities out there that will try to stop you.
Yeah. Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. No. And I think after I had said that, I think I completely agree with you, because every day when I take a shower at the end of the day and I'm doing my, you know, like sealing myself up, I'm always saying, one part of what I do at the end of the day is to clear off anything that is not of my highest good from those known and unknown. Anything that does not align with my personal self-growth or where I'm going. And I do verbalize that every day. So obviously I have to believe in it to be, you know, trying to protect myself in that way. It's just not something I think that I put that much thought into throughout the day on my day-to-day, because it's not something that I think is, you know, I think I'm not looking for it. I'm not purposefully interacting with it. But sometimes that can happen without you searching for it, right? You can bump into somebody out in the street that may express like, you know, whether or not they express it verbally, but may have harbor their own feelings towards you that are not of your highest good, that may be, you know, jealousy or wanting to see your downfall, or
dishonor on your cow, dishonor on your family. From Mulan.
Yep, exactly.
Dishonor on you, dishonor on your ancestor, whatever it is. Dishonor
like that's extreme. If somebody feels that way about you, I think you might want to be paying attention to that.
Right. I feel like personally I have experienced a lot of that darker in my life through the years, and I've seen darker entities or spirits or whatever you want to say, and so I feel like I'm a little bit more in tune to it. Not like day to day, like, oh my god, I'm so worried. You know, that's not what I'm saying, but I'm just aware that that may be being attracted to me. And that I need to be cautious of that. I don't think that I'm getting signs that I'm misinterpreting. Like, I don't think I'm getting like signs from the other side, but I think I could get blockages or just visits or just like kind of scare tactic, you know, or just have come across, you know, malevolent spirits that when they died, they didn't die well. And so they're kind of trapped in this darkness. And so I've come across that a lot. So I kind of feel like I'm kind of in tune to that. Actually, I didn't really think of that until I was just talking about this just now. I'm like, wow, I think I have come across that a lot, actually.
Well, because when it happens, it's like, okay, let me deal with this thing as it's happening. And then you're not really thinking about like, you know, have I seen a pattern with this, or have I noticed this, you know, so many times or whatever. So, but as you were saying that, one of the things that was that I was thinking is like how much our personal experience can kind of play into that, because I have had however many experiences that I've, attracted something that I didn't know I was attracting, or had certain interactions that I wasn't necessarily super aware of. But in every one of those cases, it has turned out that once I had the information, then I was able to do whatever I needed to do about it, and it wasn't necessarily like malicious. And one of the examples that I can give to that is when I did that past life regression last year. I live in a very old home. There have only been 2 previous owners to this house, so we're the 3rd people to own this house. And the people directly before us that own the house, the woman who was one of the owners, her and her husband, she passed away in this home. And there were very clear signs that she was still here when we got here, when we moved into this house. And initially, that presented to me as like I had
people over
and they were saying like they were hearing or seeing things that were kind of off and funny.
Yeah.
I was experiencing things, particularly in my bedroom, which happened to be her bedroom, which happened to be where she passed. And
oh, geez.
At the time, like I was experiencing things that were like super uncomfortable and like disrupting my sleep and things like that. Once I realized what was going on and realized that it was her, I started to have a conversation with her, and I started to let her know, like, okay, I'm not here to like harm you. I don't want you to harm me. I don't want you disrupting us in that way. Like, kind of set the ground rules. And from that point forward, it's been pretty okay. Now then I went on that past life regression. We were having a conversation about this, and the woman doing my past life regression helped me to understand like how me having that conversation was helpful in eliminating some of those disruptions, but how it could have also been challenging because it was kind of like keeping Elizabeth here.
By you talking to her? Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Giving her a reason to stay, even though she had no reason to stay.
Okay.
Because I was having pretty regular conversations with her. I'm like, okay, listen, if you're going to be here,
let's just chat.
we need to be on the same page. So anyway, so she helped me to release her and to, send her off to where she needed to be. But I think those are the types of experiences where it's like, I don't know what I'm walking into, and I walk into something and it's like, oh, that could potentially be really scary. It could potentially be detrimental in some way. But as I gained more information, the situation kind of dissipated. It wasn't as scary. It wasn't as bad. It was much more manageable. Figured out what to do the right thing, move on from there. So from my perspective, I haven't had those experiences with like dark entities in the same way that you have. So it just, I think of them differently. Now, if I were to be in that situation, then I probably would, start to shift how I see it. But because of the things that I have experienced, it's like, okay, up to this point, everything has been manageable, even if it didn't feel that way initially. And that's kind of what I lean back on. Even if I don't know what this situation is going to bring or what I'm walking into, I will figure it out.
I give way big props to you because I don't know about now, probably still now, I have an irrational fear of ghosts. Like, if I knew somebody was there and I knew that they were like in my house and I could hear them and feel them, I would freak out. Like, I've said for so long that I was afraid that I would ever buy a house that was haunted because I would freak out. I would not be able to live there. Like, I am just terrified of ghosts, and I don't know why. Like, I don't know, maybe just because I can feel them and I know that they're there my whole life. My aunt and uncle lived in like 100-year-old like farmhouse in Pennsylvania, and I loved going there because I liked being there, but I hated being there because it was haunted and it was terrifying. I never slept when I was there. Like, you would hear people walking around, you would hear things would move, like pots and pans would be thrown on the floor, and like it was terrifying.
Yeah. That's interesting. I don't know why I take the approach that I do. Because, like, when that stuff is happening, my immediate reaction is like, cut it out. Like, I got stuff to do. Why are you bothering me?
No, my instinct is like, what is that?
Yeah.
It's gonna get me. I don't know. Interesting. Yeah, I wonder now though if I were to come across something, because honestly, I think part of it is like you can kill a serial killer, you can't kill a ghost type situation, and I don't know if that's why it scares me. Like you can't do anything to them, but now I think I would be able to be like, okay, like let's move on, let's have a conversation, let me whatever. So, but
knowing now that you can walk into that situation protected might make a difference.
Yeah. Maybe.
I have, and maybe that's why I've had some of the experiences I've had where like I had no idea what I was walking into, because, and I didn't realize this till, recently, but I will like just walk into situations. I have had my entire life, and I don't know why. I think I know why, but my entire life I have felt comfortable in like cemeteries. To the point where like I used to in college go and do my homework in the cemetery.
Oh my God.
I'm like, okay, I just need a place to chill. I need a place that's going to be quiet. And
quiet, here, comfortable and homey.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm the strange one who's sitting next to my grandma's grave, talking to her about my math homework. Like,
oh, geez.
Okay,
yeah.
That's what we're doing now. But yeah, it's like always been like something about it makes me feel at ease. And that's not to say that like walking into a cemetery, I feel at ease immediately. I feel at ease at my grandmother's grave. I feel at ease even around her when she passed. That was 6 years ago at this point. It was a long time ago. So when she passed, she was one of the first people to be buried at this part of the cemetery that she's in.
Oh, interesting.
And at this point, like, it's full. So when I go to see her, I will acknowledge all of the people around her. I'm like, these are your neighbors. I hope you guys are getting along.
Hi, Rose.
Hello?
Hi, Henry.
Yep. I'm like, how y'all doing? I'm here. Hello. I try to be like respectful and just aware of the dynamic that might be there. But yeah, I mean, I always feel comfortable being there. And so like, I'll go and sit and have a conversation or not, do work or not, whatever. But it's things like that I'm just like, yeah, I'm just going to walk in here and we'll see what happens.
What happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am the opposite in a cemetery. And I'm trying, and while you're talking, I'm trying to figure out why I am not comfortable in cemeteries. I think it's because I can feel it all. Like, I don't know if I feel other people's grief. I don't know if I feel the energy of the place. I don't know. It's like kind of maybe a little oppressive. Maybe that's the word. And I don't know. I have to think about that. Maybe I have to go to one and see what happens. I haven't, like, I don't know. I don't go that often, but when I do, it's always like,
yeah,
hi, okay, let's go. I'm uncomfortable. So
yeah, I don't think that's uncommon. I also think it might have to do with like how people's beliefs and about passing and what that looks like is like. I was watching Outlander, and that show is very historically accurate in the things that they do and how they portray it all. And one of the scenes that I was recently watching was a funeral, and somebody had died not that long before. They buried that person. Now this next person dies. They go to bury that person. They're doing the whole ceremony, and they start talking about how the last person to die and be buried in the cemetery is now the keeper of the cemetery.
That's interesting.
Until the next person comes. And so that person is there to greet whoever comes, let them know, like, what, this is how we run things here. This is what you can expect. Like,
the HOA.
Yep. You don't want to talk to Maeve on Thursdays because she's a little testy, but here you go. But that idea is not something that is unheard of, and it's something that I have heard in different cultures across time. where there is a keeper of the cemetery. There's however that is appointed, a spirit is appointed to watch over the cemetery. And so for me, knowing that, I walk into the cemetery knowing that there is structure here. There is a way of things happening. There is boundaries. There's respect that needs to be had. There's things that need to be followed. And maybe I don't know all of those details, but I try to follow what I do know as best as possible.
That's cool. I never heard that, and I think that's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's like,
I don't know. I'm just like picturing this, and it's just really funny in my head. Like you said, don't talk to Maeve on Thursday.
Yeah.
We have tea on Tuesdays. All is welcome.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
It's interesting, but I think, all of that kind of plays into it, is like, not just what are your beliefs, but what are your experiences, and how do you navigate those situations? How do you work through those situations?
Yeah, I've never done a past life regression. I don't know if I want to, because I'm afraid of what I'd find, I guess. It's kind of scary to think about what you're going to come across, because you don't know. And I don't know that I am emotionally sound enough to deal with something and I don't know if it's because I know something or whether I'm just projecting that there'll be something scary. But again, just kind of thinking through it while we were talking, just why maybe I've had all these negative spirits and interactions, is I think I was some sort of, what is the word? Like not warrior, but like some sort of like soldier against the dark at some point. I might be going way crazy for people right now, but I think I was, and I think that's why I'm thinking particularly to an incident that happened to me when I was living in an apartment. It was a 3-floor walk up when I was in grad school. And this is before kind of like, we've already talked about, like, I've always kind of had like this connection and knowing that there was something there, but not really like haven't cultivated any of it. And I used to have like this period between time and awakening, like sleep and wake, where I would have kind of the same interaction. I would be talking to this person, this man. I got the idea that he was from a different plane, a different time period, something not of the particular world that I was in, but that I knew him, and he was talking to me familiarly, that I needed to do something to protect that world. Otherwise, like whatever it was going to kind of destroy the world. And I was the in-between, basically. And I had this dream very often. And dream, whatever you want to call it, because it was in between. Like I knew I was awake, and it happened a lot. And then one night, it kind of all came to a head. And there was, I don't know if I told you this story before, but if I did, whatever, I'm going to say it again. In the corner of my room, there was like this really dark energy. And I basically all night was like riling against it. Like I was like telling it it's got to go, like, trying to protect myself, kind of like deal with this whole energy. Like it was very like stressful, very, very powerful. And during that time, a major storm hit and lightning and like all this stuff. And it was just like this horrific storm, tons of lightning, tons of rain, tons of thunder. And finally, when I had like gotten this thing to go away, the storm stopped. And I went to work the next day, and I worked very close to where my house was. And a lot of my friends did too that worked there. And I said, wow, did you guys see that storm last night? Like, it was crazy. And they all looked at me and they're like, what storm? I was like, there was a thunderstorm, a huge thunderstorm. They're like, no. I was like, okay, weird. And none of that ever happened again when I lived there. It was like, so like stuff like that happens, weird stuff like that. So I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure that affects how you see things when how you think about things when you're going into certain situations or trying to prepare for certain things. And yeah, I'd probably be a little bit more on edge about those things too. I
Yeah.
think I just haven't had those types of experiences. The couple times that I can remember now, and this might have happened more, but I just don't remember, but the couple times that I can remember now, like seeing a ghost or an entity when I was young,
Mm-hmm.
um, weren't like traumatic or malicious or anything. It was like, you know, seeing them stand by the garbage and just stare at me for a couple minutes and then leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Or seeing them from a distance, or them popping up in front of me and like it's like a jump scare, like, oh crap.
Excuse me.
But then they, you know, back up or leave, or I don't see them again. And it's been
Mm-hmm.
like that. So I don't know. I just don't have that. Like, I think because of that, and also because of my tendency to be like, hey, do I know how to get through this situation?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I don't know exactly what I need to do, but I know I will get through it because I've gotten up through everything up to this point. So I think those two things kind of make it so that I don't know, just jump into situations without fully knowing, but knowing that it'll be okay.
Mm-hmm. I feel like situations just happen upon me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily like putting myself in those types of situations. They just kind of happen upon me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, that's what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
It's interesting. I wonder what it would be like if you, not that if you go looking for any certain situation, but if you are um, kind of as prepared as you can be at all times for any situation to happen, how
Mm-hmm.
that would look.
I feel like that is kind of what's going on, you know,
Mm-hmm.
now that I am much more connected to my spirit guides, my power animal. Like, you know, when I am scared, I will often call on my power animal to come to me and protect me and be
Mm-hmm.
there. I think that has helped.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I wonder if I would actually go into a situation, like, I don't know, maybe somebody asks me to come help them with something to that effect, you know, some
Mm-hmm.
sort of fear or nervousness about the house, something going on in their house or whatever, in their dreams, if what would happen.
Yeah. Hmm. To be seen, I guess.
I'll come in there like what's his name? Gandalf. You shall not pass.
Yeah, you need to bring that energy.
Right. Wielding my gigantic staff and my big beard.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. So.
That's pretty cool. I was thinking, kind of off topic,
Mm-hmm.
about the conversation that we were having with Gabrielle, and I'm super excited for that episode to come
Mm-hmm.
out.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking about one of the questions that I asked her about, like, what things do you do for fun
Mm-hmm.
that help bring balance to your spiritual practice?
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I was trying to get at that I didn't know how to articulate, probably because I was like fangirling a little hard and couldn't speak. I didn't have words.
Yeah, both little.
Yeah. But like the things that she mentioned and the things that I mentioned, of like the things that I do with journaling,
Mm-hmm.
or grounding, but not doing those things in a way that are specifically for that purpose. Like if I'm going to be grounding now and I'm going to go outside, and I'm going to be very intentional about where my energy is, what I'm paying attention to, what I'm looking for out of that experience, versus when I'm trying to have fun. So this past weekend, we went to Portland, Maine, and we went and I wanted to take pictures. I very much enjoy photography. It's not something that I do all the time. It's not something that I
Mm-hmm.
am like really great at, but I enjoy taking pictures. So we went for that. And I think things like that, where I can do something that I enjoy, like photography, but also taking a moment to ground myself in that space and
Mm-hmm.
really understand like the energy of that space, the lighthouse, the dilapidated mansion that we walked through, the
Mm-hmm.
environment that we're in. If I'm doing something like journaling, it's not necessarily going to be my traditional journaling. It's going to be something more creative,
Right.
like creative writing. I enjoy doing that. But I
Mm-hmm.
think something that was just like coming to me last night as I was thinking about it, like, what do I really mean by that? What is something that I can do for fun that is fulfilling spiritually?
Mm-hmm.
Is laughing.
Mm.
And that's really what came to me. And I was like, you know, like when you have those really good laugh sessions where like
Mm-hmm.
your stomach hurts, and
Yeah.
that's amazing. I don't get that enough,
Yeah.
but I enjoy having those moments where we could just laugh and be silly and carefree and, you know, whatever. You and I think, do that plenty of times. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
this is a great space for that. Um, but in general, I think if I could make that more of a priority,
Mm-hmm.
it might make it a little easier to feel balanced with the work.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I was hearing, like with liking the photography and stuff and like creative writing, that's that creative
Mm-hmm.
piece that kind of brings you inward to that feminine energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's going to fill that and, you know, bring you closer to that. So then that's
Mm-hmm.
going to bring you closer to balance. So it's going to be um, grounding and balancing just
Yeah.
by doing that and by enjoying it and being happy and
Mm-hmm.
just, you know, being creative in general.
Yeah. My card pull this morning specifically referenced laughing,
Mm.
specifically referenced being instead of doing,
Mm-hmm.
feminine energy.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Those are the things that I think, you know, can kind of like it can be incorporated with, but can kind of be put on the sideline sometimes, because the conversation that we were having had a lot to do with, like, you know, the work of it all. And you and I talked about this before too, but feeling like you're constantly doing, constantly trying to build, constantly trying to get further. And there's always something else. And
Mm-hmm.
you want to be able to slow down sometimes and just experience it for what it is. Let it sit with you. Let your experience be complete on its own without having, you know, something else that needs to be added to that.
Right. Yeah. I think that's kind of what I have been getting caught up in is the, well, I've got to make this better. I've got to cultivate this. Like, and if I don't
Mm-hmm.
do this every day, it's, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I'm not going to get better. But it's like, do I need to get better? Like, do I need to force myself to get better? Um, because this is just innately there.
Yeah.
And I need to come back to that this is innately in you.
Mm-hmm.
You have this. It's called intuition for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I think trying to bring back that enjoyment and that peace with it.
Yeah.
Like you said, slowing down, I think is going to help me because I think that's what got me to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I felt different. So I kept forcing it to continue,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I need
Mm-hmm.
to work on that, but not work on it.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like, just let it be. It's doing its thing.
Yeah.
It's like incubating
Mm-hmm.
and just letting it sit and build.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about that too, and like how it plays a role in, like, in my household, in my family. Um, Not that it's like a very prominent thing or anything that's like super explicit, but just being able to show up a little bit more presently for my family, for my son, for my boyfriend, for, you know, the people in my life, just being able to, like, not just show up present, like be more present, but also be more curious and compassionate instead of judgmental,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which I think is a tendency for most people to kind of just do, right? We jump into, I am seeing, hearing, experiencing this thing, and immediately having some sort of thought about it, interaction, or process, or
Mm-hmm.
judgment about it.
Yeah, I have definitely had to work very hard on especially interactions with my son. Like when he comes home from school, not instantly being like, "Do you have homework? Like, did you do that? You know, do the dishes, do this, do that." Da, da, da,
Mm-hmm.
da. I mean, sometimes I have to because I'm going into like work or something, like, and I have to tell him, I need you to do this, this, and this right off the bat as soon as he walks in the door. But I have to be very mindful of not just like, barking orders at him or just like being at him, excuse me. Or when he tells me he did something where he shouldn't have done it at school, not instantly being like, like he was hanging off the rafters in shop class, like, and he showed me a picture and he thought it was hysterical. I was trying not to like instantly being like, well, you shouldn't have done that. Like, because he shared it with me, you know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, that's hilarious, but dude, don't do that again. That sort of thing. So like you said,
I was having a thought about like the way that I was raised, not necessarily the way that I was raised, but with the beliefs that I developed because of the way that I was raised. And we talked about this before, but like I learned very young that doing things well, that exceeding at certain things, especially academically, that going above and beyond was valued. So I was always praised for that, and not that I was chastised for not doing those things, but the praise was like feeding me, right? And so it's like, okay, I have to always be perfect. I have to always be thinking ahead. I have to always be the best at what I'm trying. And that became like a core belief of mine, and it is limiting in some ways because then it doesn't allow me to experience the full range of any experience. But I was thinking about that and how different I have tried to set that up for my son, and I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but so for me, it was like, hey, you get A's. If you get a B, okay, but really, you get A's. If you get C's, you're grounded. And for us, being grounded meant until your next report card comes out, you don't leave your room unless it's to do responsibilities around the house or to, do something with the family. Like you were grounded. So for my son, it's like, you know what? I don't care what grade you get. As long as you're trying, it doesn't matter if that grade is a D or an A. As long as you are asking for help and support when you need it, it doesn't matter what the outcome is. And realistically, your employer is not going to ask you if you got A's. They're not going to care about what those grades were. So I went from like having this experience growing up to the opposite end for my son. And I hope that it was helpful, but I understand that that was for me as much as it was for him, just having that.
Yeah, I struggle with that because my younger kids like are not academically inclined and don't care to be. And I've always been like, okay, like if C is the best you can get, awesome. But like I need to see that you are getting, like you're trying for that C. And it's like so hard for me not to be like, but you're not doing well, So it is hard. And it just does. And for me, I just do not understand not wanting to try to be the best. Like I don't understand it. Literally don't. I'm like, I do not understand why you don't turn your homework in. Because it never occurred to me not to. Yeah. And I would have been so embarrassed to not turn my homework in. And I would have been like so embarrassed to tell my parents I didn't turn my homework in. Not necessarily because they do anything, but because it was just expected. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't know. Yeah. So that's been a huge problem for me with my kids. Trying not to like, I don't know. It's a disconnect for me. Yeah. I'm still working through it.
I think that's sometimes the struggle that comes up is like we have these experiences of our own, and so that informs how we view things, and we may go to the opposite end when we are then, raising our own kids or having our own family. Sometimes people go from point A to point B, and it's like, oh, this is where I was, but now I'm over here. But sometimes it's not that extreme. Sometimes it's like, oh, I'm trying not to be at point A, but I'm like sticking really close to it. And I think, there can be some sort of like middle ground that makes more sense, but we don't always know how to connect with that, especially if that's not what we've experienced. So,
yeah, it's hard. It comes back to those like limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
They're hard.
Mm-hmm. They are, but I've been seeing a lot of different videos and content creators who are showing up on my feed. They've been there. I just didn't see them before. But they've been showing up lately, and it's like walking me through how to think about these things in a different way, because I think I need that. I think I need to like slow down that thought process and figure out how to answer the questions, how to do the work. So for example, when it comes to like these limiting beliefs, one of the questions that was posed was like, okay, in this moment, as it stands right now, this day and time, what are your beliefs and what impacts your beliefs? And I thought I knew the answer to that question, but then when I actually sat down to think about it, I came up with a totally different answer that was like, wait a minute, what? Where is this coming from? So just a little bit of thought that was coming up for me.
Yeah, I've done a lot of work on limiting beliefs over the last however many months it's been, like
Mm-hmm.
5 months or so. And it's been a real big eye opener for me. I didn't necessarily, I mean, I probably knew some of them, but like didn't put like a
Mm-hmm.
name to them.
Mm-hmm.
And really have had to work through a fair amount of them. And then it's like, okay, I peeled away that layer. It's like, cool. And then here comes a deeper one. It's like, oh, I thought I was done with this process. Yeah, no. Just a
Mm-hmm.
deeper level. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. I mean, they just can keep going. And even when we work through them, if they're beliefs that we've had ingrained for so long, we may find ourselves in situations where we might revert back to them automatically without thinking about it. So it is something that we have to continuously, like, not that you have to always be thinking about it, but just recognize, like, oh, that's coming up again. And let's not let that so easily come up again when we're trying to do something different. But,
Definitely. So,
so,
well, I think we're coming into time.
okay.
So, I guess
It was
maybe.
nice, I think, to do something a little less structured. I appreciate the structured. I like the structured.
Mm-hmm.
And we can do so much with that too. Like, I don't think we ever have enough time to really go into some of the topics that we go into, but just kind of letting things come up as they do can be really nice too.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to kind of touch back on what we started with because I was
Yeah.
like, I had more to think about that one.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I agree. And I like that we started there because in the context of the episode originally, when we were talking about synchronicities, it was like a moment of,
yeah.
hey, here's a thought. And we didn't really have time to go into it. So I think that was a good place to start. And it also unfolded more. Like the thought process for me unfolded more as we were having the conversation.
Yeah, me definitely. Just things I hadn't really necessarily thought of or like put together or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely. Good insights
Cool.
as usual when we talk. So,
Amazing. So I know that we have a semi plan of like things that are coming up, topics that we're going to be talking about, episodes that are going to be coming out. But if anybody has any ideas or wants to hear anything specific, let us know.
I'm curious about anybody's thoughts on what we were talking about too. Like, do you believe that everything's from the light? Do you believe that there's evil entities? Like,
Yeah.
how has that shown up for you? Like,
Yeah.
do you have any stories? I'd love to hear everybody's opinion. So leave us a
Hit us up.
comment. You can text us on Buzzsprout. We're
Mm-hmm.
actually now on Substack, which is a new thing for us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be putting our meditations on there and our card pulls and just kind of some general thoughts that I have are going to go on there. I'll put them in the show notes if anybody's interested. Follow us on Substack. So,
Yeah, definitely.
alrighty. Well, until next time.
Talk to you soon.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.